I'd like to open the PVD Planning Board meeting held on a virtual platform Zoom. Agenda for Thursday, April 15, 2021, held at 7 p.m. on a virtual platform Zoom. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law 30A, Section 18. This will be held on a public website, Zoom. The public is invited to attend. Participants may dial in at 1-646-558-565-8656. And this is also being broadcast on public access TV. At this time, I'd like to suspend the regular meeting and enter into public hearing scheduled for 7 p.m. Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 15C, Scenic Road Designation Public Hearing to consider an application by the City of Peabody Parks and Recreation and Forestry Department requesting permission for the removal of 2 trees deemed to be hazardous on Forest Street, a scenic road. Also, the board will also be hearing a request from John Belair requesting a removal of 2 trees located on 10 Birch Street, map 14, lot 160, a designated scenic road in the City of Peabody. Someone from the Recreation Department, please.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I've allowed now Brian Grant, and I believe that's Mr. Blyler to speak. Brian, it looks like you can speak. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Again.
All right. So John, about a year and a half ago, came, maybe even earlier than that, came to me about wanting his 2 oak trees, which are city property, removed in front of his house. And we've talked about pruning the trees. We've just been going back and forth. That's why I reached out to the planning board, because of Birch Street being a scenic road. If John wants to step in and kind of discuss why he wants the trees removed, that'd be great.
Sure. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, they just, they've kind of ruined the driveway. And also I feel like they're kind of hazardous. I have 2 young daughters and another on the way. And then kind of hang over her bedroom, and now off onto my roof. They ate all my cable wires, so I had to have Comcast come out and doors placed in the holes that they burrowed in life. People come and do that. So, and I wanted to brighten up the front of my property and trying to make it look better every day. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Is anybody else having a problem hearing, or is it me?
I am.
I couldn't hear it.
Yeah, I couldn't hear either.
Same here.
I heard
You
part of
couldn't
it.
hear me?
Some of it.
I'm sorry.
You're kind of breaking up there.
I think, Drew, we got the gist of this.
Do you want me to try? Oh my God!
I could fill you guys in based on what we've talked about before, if you want me to do that.
Yes, please.
Well, John has mentioned the issues with his driveway. The roots starting to buckle his driveway. He's got 2 young daughters, I believe, and another on the way, where the limbs overhang the roof line. So he feels as though that's a hazard, and it makes them nervous during storms. And he just wants to kind of brighten up the front of his house to take away the 2 big oaks. John, is that pretty much what the gist of it is for the most part? Am I still on?
Yeah, you're still on, Brian.
Oh, okay.
But the gentleman from who was talking we can't hear anything.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you, John. Yep.
I'm sorry. I had a bad Wi-Fi connection. I think I'm all set right now if you want me to repeat what I was saying.
I think we got it repeated, a gist of it anyway.
Okay.
It didn't have any questions from any members of the board. Dr. Otto?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Mr. Grant. I'd be curious, well, let me just say that the farther tree in that picture looks like very badly mutilated at this point. But the tree that's closest in the photograph that Drew put up looks to be in pretty good health. And I'm wondering what options the applicant and you have talked about with regard to perhaps trimming the tree so that it's off the roof.
Yeah, we've definitely discussed pruning as well. So, and we've kind of gone back and forth on that option, and we haven't really come to an agreement on that as far as pruning, which we definitely can do for sure. We could prune one, remove one. There are definitely some options that we could talk about.
I could support pruning of one and removing the misshapen, kind of dangerous looking one.
Yeah, the one towards the right, so to speak.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes. Thank you.
And I would agree with Dr. Otto on that.
Mr. Gagnon?
Through the chair, whose expense is it to take these trees down? Is it the city or is the applicant?
Based on the ordinance that was passed about 9 years ago, the resident is responsible for the cost of the removal.
And the second question I have is, if you had permission to remove the two large trees, would you be interested in replanting just a small tree or?
Yes, Brian indicated that and said that the city, as part of the fee that I will be paying, would actually replant maybe 4 small ones in the same spot, which I am definitely, or it might have been 2. I'm definitely okay with that. No problem.
Yeah, the money that John is paying to remove the trees goes to the city tree fund, which allows the city to replenish the healthy trees that we're losing.
I wouldn't have any problem with, removing the 2 trees if 2 new trees were shortly thereafter planted. 2 young trees, which would give you the sunlight you're looking for and so forth. And aesthetically, you'd still have a couple of trees there that will grow for many, many years to come.
Yeah, that's great.
That's all. Thank you.
Comment from the chair. I believe that the larger tree near the driveway will not solve the problem of buckling, the roots buckling his driveway. I had that same condition in my house, and it's very expensive to try to repair the driveway. At least since we're in weather conditions that put snow down, snow blowers don't like to bounce over buckled driveways.
That'll be the next thing I have to fix.
Matthew?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I just ask Roy, if both trees were to come down, how complicated is that removal with the wires that pass right through it? And is that tree a hazard staying where it is the way it's intertwined with the wires?
Well, oh my God, excuse me. Sorry about that. Typically, you need a tree crew that's certified to work around live wires, and our PMLP tree crew, if necessary, could go and take any limb that might be touching the wires, but we're not gonna de-limb the whole tree. So
No, that would be the city forestry department to
yeah.
remove those 2 trees. Yep. And there's not, I mean, we definitely need, a police detail and whatnot, but John at 10 Birch, they have a pretty good driveway for setup. So it would take some time, but we definitely have access to the 2 trees.
So
Any other questions from the board? Yes, Mr. Simmons.
yeah, well, thank you. Through the chair, just a question to Brian, I guess. I'm more inclined leaning with with John and Dr. Otto, because I think the theory with these scenic byways is to try to preserve some of the older growth trees.
Agree. Yep.
Okay, so you do agree with that.
Yep.
And it's, I guess, unfortunate that it's causing problems with the driveway. And I guess the other thing is it's not ideal that the wires are in essence right in the canopy of the tree, and the tree's only going to get taller. So
Yeah, and that's like that.
We're all in agreement about the fire tree, that one's just really pretty well gone. So.
Correct. Yep.
Do you mind if I just say one more thing?
Go ahead, sir.
All right, thank you. The other tree, the one closest in the picture, they're both concerned with the wires if a storm comes through and takes them down. Also, the two front bedrooms that are right under that tree, I'm also concerned of those hitting my house because, I mean, my kids' bedrooms are right there too, and that it is hanging over their bedrooms. And I don't think it's that healthy anymore. I mean, branches are always falling on my car, and it's a concern to me. That's why I wanted to get rid of it, for my family's safety and for power lines. And I know the driveway is 40 years old anyway, and that's not so much the tree's fault, as just age. So that's got to be replaced no matter what. But that's pretty much it.
Yes, Mr. Sanders.
And I guess through you to Mr. Grant again, is there any way that two going away could four go in instead of two going away, even if the four aren't in front of this gentleman's property? Maybe two are in front of this gentleman's property, and one is a little further down and one is a little further up. I don't know. I just,
as far as planting, Roy, or
excuse me.
As far as planting, I'm not.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I don't think we can fit 4 trees there. We could definitely go, the same cultivar as the whole street. Would probably plant another couple oaks there, which would be, down the road would finally, 30, 40 years would match what we have there. I'm fine with pruning one and removing one and planting an oak, and if that doesn't appease, if that doesn't help out with John's concerns, and maybe we could go back and remove it. But once we remove it, it's gone for good. So
yeah, and if you cut too many limbs on one side of the tree, doesn't it then have a tendency to want to fall the other way if something were to happen to it?
Yeah, you got to keep the integrity and the balance of the tree. That's for sure.
Yes, Mr. Avanites.
Question for Mr. Grant, I guess. Has the city, or have you done any kind of assessment, just even visual or otherwise, of the health of the tree or the condition of some of the branches? It doesn't look unhealthy from the picture, but it's a terrible picture, black and white. Can't really see much. And I was just wondering if you could give us your view as to your opinion of the health of the tree.
Yeah, just looking up when I was there last.
I can share my screen again for the image of the tree.
Yeah, last time I was there was February 10th of 2021. And the tree it's healthy. I mean, it's a strong oak. There's no rot. There's no mushroom activity. There's some dead limbs in there, that's for sure. I think probably the last time it was pruned was probably when PMLP went down the street, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. So.
How old is this picture?
That's from February 10th, 2021.
Well, it's got a lot of leaves.
Oh, no, that's not. No, that's not. No, I apologize. The picture, let me go back.
A lot of leaves for February.
Yeah, no, that picture is from July 22nd, 2020. And then I went back out John called me on February 9th, 2021. I went out 2/10/2021 to take a look at it. So I don't have an updated photo, but that photo is from July 22nd, 2020.
Thank you.
Yep.
You can take the picture down, Andrew. Any other questions for the board? Mr. Gagnon. Mr. Gagnon,
Yes, I had to get me off mute. My observation is that if PMLP goes in and trims that healthy tree, it's not going to be a good looking tree. It looks like it's all intertwined in the wires there. So again, I would be fine with just taking the two out and plant, as long as they're replanting, soon after with appropriate trees.
any other questions or comments from the board? Matthew.
Thank you, Tom. Brian, would you plant the new trees directly underneath the wires again, expecting the same result, or would they be shifted slightly in or out of the property? And does it have to be, would it be a nice scenic view if it were other trees other than oak or something that's going to be so, sort of invasive, I guess, many years to come?
Well, we do have smaller trees that we do plant. I was just trying to keep with the same integrity of the street itself, we'd have to almost plant, we can't plant exactly on the same footprint as the other two. So they'd either be pushed back a little bit or closer together, so to speak, if they would come in.
What would be an option? What would be a secondary option to the oak trees?
Well, we plant some red sunset maples now, October glories, red point maples. We have Kwanzaa cherries, Sergeant cherries, snow goose cherries, some pear trees, some smaller trees that around the city that we've been planting under wires. We don't plant a lot of oaks anymore, just because of the damage to sidewalks and whatnot. So we're just, I think I dropped a brochure off. John, did I drop you off a brochure for trees?
I believe you did, of the smaller trees, yes.
Yeah, right, yep. And we can definitely fit a couple flowering Kwanzans there that would give, John his privacy once they, 5 years down the road, and then he'd have his sunlight and everything, and no driveway issues or, concerns with hazards over the bedrooms and whatnot.
I personally, initially I was supportive of the single tree coming down and pruning the second, but to Joe's point, it's just all in the wires, and I can't see that as being. I don't see it hanging over the house all that much, at least the photo that I'm looking at from Google. But it, anything can happen. That's going to take out a whole lot of wires and BMS for Roy if something happened. I'd be supportive of both of them coming down and some nice smaller trees. Something's flowering, and any of those that you mentioned are really nice. So I'd love to see something like that to keep the, it'll keep the street looking nice, but be less invasive. So that'd be my opinion.
Yes, Roy.
Just a quick note for the rest of the board members. Usually the only utilities that do any pruning are electric. No other cable, telephone, fire alarm, the alternate cable company that's just going in. None of those really, for all intents and purposes, do any pruning whatsoever. So I think a smaller stand of a tree is probably more appropriate, especially where the trees have to be planted on city property, right? Is that correct, Brian? You need to maintain them within the city layout.
They can, but we also have a back of the sidewalk program.
Oh,
Where it's basically 20 feet back behind city property. You can plant And this allows us to kind of sometimes, John doesn't have one here, but you can take the tree off the utility strip, the grass strip, and put it into a healthier environment behind the sidewalk.
I see. But
He has one here, but we can move it back,
Right.
a couple feet.
But that really wouldn't solve the problem of branches hanging over the house and having a concern, because getting closer to the house.
Well, if it was a Quonset, no, it wouldn't get that high. Those only get about 25 feet, 30 feet.
I see. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions from the board?
Just a comment.
Andrew? Sorry. You're muted.
Andrew.
There we go. Brian, can I just ask just 2 points of clarification on it? The tree that everyone is kind of in agreement here on coming down, the one that's leaning, it looks like that was probably pruned to get out of the way of the wires. Is that, I can't really see in the picture, but is that the case? Is that why it's now leaning like that? Because those branches?
That would be the case. That would be the case. Yep.
Okay. And then
we did have a large storm go through there about 8 years ago. I think it was a July 4th storm. So we might have lost a limb at some point on that tree. And I know, like I said, I think PMLP 3 or 4 years ago went down and pruned the trees. So, but we haven't had any calls on that tree to the far right in quite some time. So, but it does, you can see where all the weight is towards his house for sure.
Yeah. And then just a second question, and I can kind of see it on Google Maps when I look, but in the picture, it makes it look like, so I just want to ask, is the tree that is under question right now the one that's the one that people, that it seems like is under debate right now, is that leaning towards the street, or is that just what the picture makes it look like?
Yeah, it could be weighted towards the street a little bit. Yep.
Okay. Just wanted to ask those clarification points.
Yep.
Attorney Evanides?
I just want to say that I would support removal of both trees and replacement with something that is smaller and would yet develop into something that has an aesthetic value for the scenic roadway.
Any other comments or questions from the board? At this time, I'd like to accept a motion. Anyone willing to?
I'll make a motion. I would move that the board approve removal of both trees as requested, and that they be replaced with trees that are going to grow much smaller than an oak. And I would defer to Mr. Grant's choice of tree to fit that description.
Okay.
You have a second on that motion? Mr. Gagnon, you want to do a roll call on this, Andrew?
Yep, I'm gonna do a roll call. Attorney Arvanites,
Yes.
Mr. Ford,
Yes.
Mr. Simoes,
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Mr. Gagnon,
Yes.
Dr. Otto,
No.
Attorney Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Bencourt.
No.
That no?
Yes. That is no.
It passes.
Is there anyone on the application for park department on the first request?
I believe Brian is
That's
here
me. Yep.
on behalf of this one on Forest Street.
You're up again, Brian.
Okay, we have we've been losing some sugar maples on Forest Street along Salem Country Club. We lost 2 over the winter. They were dead and rotted. We had mechanical issues. We weren't able to get to them. So they fell across the street. We had to clear them up. We have 2 more. Well, we have 1 large silver maple in this photo here across from the maintenance barn of Salem Country Club. It's hollow and rotted. It needs to come down as soon as possible. So that's another large sugar maple that we're losing. We're losing a lot in the city. It's just they seem to be all planted or grown at the same time. So their lifespans are aging out right now. So we do have to remove that one as soon as possible. So there's that one. And there's another dead one towards the clubhouse. That is a doornail, needs to come down. So those two trees, I'm presenting those for removal.
Thank you, Brian. Mr. Ford.
Will you, Brian, will you be replacing these trees? So is there enough trees growing there to?
There's a lot of trees on the opposite side of the stone wall.
Right, that's actually on golf course property, but.
Correct, yeah.
These here are trees. Will you replace them? I'm relying on your opinion here. Is
Yeah,
there enough growth there?
We weren't planning to. I don't know how a young tree these days would survive on that road. I don't know. I wasn't planning on maybe replacing these just because it still looks very nice driving through there with the exposed rock wall and the tree canopy along Salem Country Club. We still have a lot of trees on our side, but as far as survival of these young sugar maples, I'm not sure it's viable.
Why would that be?
There's just more traffic on that road than when they were planted. It's just, plowing, and snowstorms and salt, and they're salting more. And, the first 5 years are very important. And that's a heavily trafficked road towards Route 1. Plowing operations, that road is always salted and sanded going back out to where you got to go. So we don't have a lot of room to plant. As you can see from the road to the stone wall, you have probably about 10 feet max, maybe. So we can try, but I just don't see it as a viable situation.
Is there a different type of tree that could be replanted there that might be hardier, that would last?
No, if we did replant, I would definitely go with the sugar maple again for sure. Yep. It's not that they're not hardy, it's just the survivable aspect of it for the first 5 years could be difficult.
Andrew,
That one definitely needs to come down for sure.
you take down the picture, Andrew, so I can see the rest of the board members. Thank you. Mr. Samos.
Just a quick one. I guess there's no disagreement that it's dead, it's gotta come down. That's pretty clear. Is there any way to put a sugar maple on the other side of the rock wall, even though it's not city property? Would the golf course be in agreement to want to have something like that? Do you think?
I could speak with them, but I know they've done a lot of tree removals in the last few years on their course, so I don't know if they'd be interested in adding any.
Well, it makes a good screen for balls going out into the road.
Yeah, that's true. It's true.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have a question. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Dr. Otto.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to what Brian said about survivability. My experience has been that it's very difficult to establish a young tree where there are already shaded, a whole clump of shaded trees, even though the ones in the picture are small. It makes a young tree have to compete really more than it's able to for sunlight, space, air, water, etc.
Excellent. Yeah, very true.
I have a question for Mr. Grant. These other smaller trees that we see behind and to the side of the tree that's coming down, I'm going to guess that they're sugar maples too, from the offspring of the seeds and things that come down from the one that's there that's coming down. Is that accurate?
It's a distinctive possibility. Yep. They're all a lot of maple trees along that side of the wall there.
So
Salem Country Club has no plans to cut any of that, and if they did, they would have to discuss that.
Yeah, so those trees may well be a good substitute, some of them, for this tree.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Andrew?
Brian, I happen to be looking at that tree on Google Maps, and this might not be the case. Google Maps can be outdated at this point. But is there a wire that's connected to the tree?
I'd have to pull it up.
And will that make
If there's a guy wire, which, you know, you're jogging my memory a little bit, there's a guy wire connected to a pole, and then that would have to be addressed before the tree would be removed.
Yeah, because I was looking at Google Maps, and it looks like when you look at Street View, someone has built a structure to hoist a wire and secured it to the tree.
Let me pull it up here, see if I can.
Mr. Chairman, could we see that picture?
Yeah, I'll share my screen. It does say that this was captured November 2020. So this
That's
is
still on there, yeah.
Yeah.
It's jogging my memory a little bit.
And I believe this is the same tree. This is right across the street from the maintenance shed. Is this the one that we're talking about, Brian?
That's the one, Andrew, yep.
Yeah. And it looks like there's, Roy. I was going to say, Roy probably will be able to know what it is.
Looks like it's there to prevent the cable from chafing on the tree.
Oh, I haven't seen that. No, usually sometimes poles are anchored to trees to stabilize them, but I don't know what that is. Oh,
Tom?
Yes, right.
Yeah, that's some sort of an improvised chafe guard that someone has, I don't know, I guess I'll say that it was cobbled together. So that's not an attachment. That's just to try to keep, because the wires are always swaying in the wind and moving up and down when the poles move, and that's just a chafe guard. So that's no big deal.
Okay.
good
Not
find.
attached.
Any other questions from the board? At this time, I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to allow Peabody Parks Rec and Forestry Department to remove 2 trees that are in a hazardous condition on Forest Street.
We have a second. Roy Samos, roll call, Andrew.
Sorry, let me just pull it back up. Attorney Arvanites,
Yes.
Mr. Ford,
Yes.
Mr. Simoes,
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Mr. Gagnon,
Yes.
Dr. Otto,
Yes.
Attorney Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Bancourt.
Yes.
Passes.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah.
Grant, for your attendance. At this time, I'd like to return to the regular meeting of the planning board.
Okay, thank you, guys. Any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you.
First order of business is approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held virtually on Zoom, April 1st, 2021.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve the minutes of April 1, 2021.
We have a second.
Second.
Mr. Ford, all those in favor, raise your hand.
For the record, everybody's raised their hand.
A&Rs in land court, none presented. Site building permits, none presented. Appointments, Boulderwood Subdivision.
Yep, still awaiting back. I know that DPS still needs to get out there, so still waiting back to get Will's or the Department of Engineering's letter on that.
Stonegate Subdivision. I believe we have a letter.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to clarify 2 things there. There's 2 letters in the packets. One letter is, if you remember at the last meeting, Attorney Kelty at the meeting had asked for a continuance to the 30th, which the board then granted. That first letter in there is just a record of that request. And then there is a second letter in there that is continuing out the board's action to a later date. I believe it's, I forget off the top of my head, when in
May 13th.
May 13th, which would be past your next meeting by a week.
Make a motion to receive the letter.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to receive a letter dated April 8th from Attorney Kelty in regards to Stonegate Subdivision. It was a request to extend out to April 30th. I do believe we have already acted on this. And the second letter.
Also April 8th, from May 3rd to extend to May 13th.
Yes, second letter from Attorney Kelty, also dated April 8th, extending time out to May 13th. I would move to receive and grant said extension of time.
I have a second of that.
Second.
Attorney Cooper, all those in favor, raise your hand.
For the record, everybody has raised their hand.
We got correspondence, we got that, city council, other matters properly before the board. Hearing, yes.
I'm
Hearing
sorry.
none, I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Chairman, move to adjourn.
Have a second on that?
Second.
Second, Dr. Otto, all those in favor?
Aye.
Everybody has raised their hand. Everybody have a great evening and a great weekend.
You
Night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Be
Thank you.
patriots.